And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thursday morning's flying weather graphic looking like this. IFR here, Seward Peninsula, actually around Kotzebue, all the way down to the Alaska Peninsula, northeastward across Kodiak Island, southern Cook Inlet, both Kamishak-Kachemak Bays, and on up into Resurrection Bay. VFR, central eastern part of the state, and some VFR from St. Lawrence Island right on down to Adak and Atka. Marginal VFR to the west. VFR continues for the eastern North Gulf Coast here in the Panhandle. As for the afternoon, improving here over especially southern Cook Inlet, marginal VFR, southern Kenai Peninsula, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and near Sitkinak and Kodiak, with the main IFR zone again across the Alaska Peninsula and then up the west coast there to the western North Slope. And we've got VFR holding out here, St. Lawrence Island, down into the Pribilofs, and now over toward Nikolsky with marginal VFR coming into Adak and Atka. And then for Friday morning, this IFR zone kind of shifts westward a little bit there. You can see from what it is Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, backing in to the west and covering the west coast here all the way up to the western Brooks Range and North Slope and into the southwest mountains a little bit, Alaska Peninsula. So no big changes here in the pattern with VFR over the interior to the east and staying VFR for the southeast coast. Areas of marginal VFR for the central western Bering Sea and Aleutians. And then for Friday afternoon, finally, next system pushing a pretty good band of IFR into the western Aleutians here to at least Amchitka Island and a little beyond by the afternoon hours. Better conditions to the east of that. And then still IFR here. Now over the good portion of the northern northeast Bering Sea, Seward Peninsula, to a lesser extent now into the Brooks Range, but still holding pretty good here down into the Alaska Peninsula and along the southwest coast. Good VFR here, Cook Inlet, south central Alaska, North Gulf Coast, all the way north up to the Arctic coast, and no change for the Panhandle. Passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR, trying to become VFR throughout the day and into the afternoon. Adigan should be VFR for the day tomorrow, and Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, best chance of that on the eastern approach of both passes, and then rainy. VFR turning toward marginal VFR again, coming down here on the eastern side the most. And windy VFR. Isabel holds VFR conditions through tomorrow, and Mentasta also looking VFR. Tanita VFR, Portage marginal, then back to VFR, staying VFR for Chilkoot and White. And for the freezing levels, big upper level high pressure area, warm air aloft, 8,000 feet there over the Yukon into about the Eagle area, and then sloping down to 2,000 feet for Cook Inlet and 6,000 feet here over the eastern North Gulf Coast areas. And from there, taking a look at icing, we've got a pretty good zone here, continued south to north flow here on the western side of that big upper level ridge here off to the east, so considerable moderate rime icing. Best chance of that, Togiak Bay, Dillingham, down across Bristol Bay of the Alaska Peninsula. And that kind of fades back as you head north here, but still some icing threats all the way up to the western North Slope areas, and possibly a little bit out here for Adak. And from there, looking at the jet stream, that area with Adak associated with an upper level low here near the area there, kind of a trough extending down at this elevation from the Russian Far East. South to north flow here up to 125 knots. They're coming into the along the southwest coast toward the Seward Peninsula, actually across the Seward Peninsula around this high pressure center there just north of the Panhandle. And at 9,000 feet, we got the strongest winds. A little farther to the east here, south to north, anywhere from 50 to 65 knots here. Kodiak Island in across south central Alaska and up in through the central interior areas. Much lighter here over the Panhandle, turning east down toward Dixon Entrance there, but not all that strong. And for 3,000 feet, next system coming northward here, so the strongest 70-knot winds with that, still well south of the Gulf of Alaska. Otherwise, this low bringing southeast winds 50 knots there in across Kamishak Bay into the southern Kuskokwim Valley. And 45-knot winds associated with this low, tracking up to the eastern Seward Peninsula areas and southwest at about 40 knots there for the eastern North Slope areas. Pretty light here, Copper River Basin down across the Panhandle. And then the next system out here, we've got 40 to 55-knot winds there, mostly over the western Bering Sea, and the strongest winds north of the central Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, look for some moderate chop shimmy and at 2 islands, those areas. Light to isolated moderate for the central Aleutians, Adak and Atka. And then still a pretty good area of considerable moderate turbulence here. Alaska Peninsula, there up to Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, the North Gulf Coast, into areas of the Kenai Peninsula, Kuskokwim Valley here. And still a little bumpy there coming across the Alaska Range.